Good morning. Our theme for February is self-awareness is not enough. And I love that image that we have up on the presentation, the person packing their stuff and heading out into the world. Because what we're exploring this month is how can we bring our spirituality, our spiritual understanding alive in the world, in our relationships, in our families, in society, at the workplace, so that when things like shootings in schools take place, our response can come from our deep convictions, from our values, from our belief in oneness, and our belief in the sacredness of all life. It's a radical claim to say, I believe in the principle of oneness. Because surely it's going to mean to me that I'll be called to respect all of life and all of creation because I'm part of it and part of you. Before I learned about this universal power that runs through all of life, I responded to world events in a different way. My response was more reactive and more combative. And I think it was often the case that I would add fuel to the fire. I think it was because I had been taught an eye for an eye. I had been taught to solve the world's problems with aggression and force. And I don't think I understood at that time what unity of all life meant, especially not how it showed up in public. When I did eventually learn about the universal principle of life, or God if you like, and the sacred nature of reality and the oneness of all being, it changed things for me. And now I can't speak for other people, but I know for me it meant I had to start asking a different set of questions. For example, I had to ask myself, as I am today, is my freedom and my autonomy more important than a child's life? Is my opinion and my preference more important than a child's safety? Are my desires more important than the sanctity of life? My world changed. Now, this month we're digging into the teachings of Science of Mind to help us get clear on this universal principle of oneness so that we can speak with conviction in a way that stays true to what we say we believe. Science of Mind teaches that there is a spiritual power that runs through all of creation, a power that works for us at the level of our belief or acceptance of it. So today we are asking the question, what is belief? In Living the Science of Mind, the book we are using to guide us all of this year, he writes on page 46, most surely, belief is a certain way of thinking. It is an activity of consciousness. Belief is a thing of thought, and being a thing of thought, we can change belief. Then he goes on to say, if that is so, if what a person believes has something to do with their experience and impacts the people around them, then wouldn't the most important thing for them be to regulate their belief so that what does happen will be good? Whoa. Regulate. Regulate means to manage. Manage something. It means being sure that it operates properly. Supervise it so that it is set right. So I think when I read this, to me it means we're being invited to align our own minds with what is constructive and productive and beneficial. In other words, to set and supervise my desires and opinions and choices on the right path so that I'm operating properly in this world. And the Bible tells us exactly how to do that. By saying we are to think on whatsoever things are true and honest and just and pure and lovely and of good report. To dwell on that. To meditate on that. That's how we regulate the machinery of our mind. You see, when I do that, then when I get to that point, when I do ask myself, is my freedom and autonomy more important than a child's life? Are my opinions more important than a child's safety? Are my desires and preferences more important than the sanctity of life? Now I can check if my mental machinery is regulated and running right. By asking, is my answer to these questions filled up, focused on honesty, justice, purity, love, and decency? Because that's what good report means. Decent, not self-serving. So how do I change what is in my mind? Well, we have to go back to last week's assigned reading where he explains that if we want to change what is in our consciousness, the first thing we have to do, the first step is we must investigate what we let into our consciousness to make sure that we are letting in the kind of thing we want to be in there, to make sure we are syncing with the right kind of stuff, to make sure we are filling our thoughts with honesty, love, and justice. Because that's where my opinions and beliefs come from. So I've been thinking about that. What do I fill my mind with? What am I dwelling on? My colleague and friend, Dr. Ken Gordon, who is the spiritual leader of our whole movement, he turned me onto a game to play on the cell phone, Because I love playing games on my cell phone because it helps me concentrate. Strangely enough, when I'm busy doing this, I'm actually listening better. I don't know how that works. And it's a game where, you have to pop bubbles and, completely mindless, but very effective. And I'm glad that he turned me onto this game because do you know the selection of games to play on a cell phone that are not violent are very few? You might say most of the top games include shooting and destruction. A while ago, I had to make a deliberate decision to regulate what I was letting into my mind and decide and refuse to purchase and play games with guns and violence and dismemberment. Now, do I really want to practice killing people in a virtual reality? Do I really want to normalize violence and dismemberment in an imagined scenario? It really got me to thinking. I can't speak for anybody else. But if my opinion is that a game cannot be rewarding unless it has death in it, am I dwelling on what is just and true and lovely? Or have I let somebody else regulate my thinking? If I defend my right and freedom to play war games, am I dwelling on what is pure and of good report? Or have I let somebody else regulate my thinking? If I don't care about the consequence of encouraging or developing a violent mind, it may be that I just don't believe in the principle of oneness and the unity of all life. But I still am putting something into action. And the spiritual power that is in and through all creation that responds to me at the level of my acceptance and belief is going to produce something for me in my life and in the life of my society. I will harvest the results of that. It's up to me what I let into my mind. It's up to me to watch what I believe in and have faith in and what I pray for. Dr. Ernest Holmes, in Living the Science of Mind, said, it was John in the Bible who said, and rightly, believe not every spirit, but try the spirits whether they are of God. No, I like that, because to me it's saying don't believe and accept everything that is offered to you. Measure it against universal truth, because that's what try it means. It means compare it, evaluate it, judge it. Ask, is this that I'm being offered, is it based on the universal principle of truth and oneness? Or is it a personal opinion? You see, to be universal, a truth must be applicable to all. It must be available to all. It must be non-regional. It must be non-preferential because it's all embracing. It cannot result in confusion because it is divine right action and order. It cannot instigate violence because, as it says in the Bible, God, is the author of peace. And when I sink my thinking to that, I can ask, how is it telling me to live? Let me tell you about Reverend James Alexander Forbes. He is the Senior Minister Emeritus of Riverside Church, an international, interracial, interdenominational church. He proposed a set of prophetic justice principles, he called them, for his Christian community and colleagues to use to measure against when they were deciding how to act in this world, especially when it comes to matters of social justice. Even though these are based on Christian spiritual principles, whatsoever things are good, true, just, and lovely, when I read them, I feel the universality of them. And these are they. Seek the common good. Be truthful in facts and motives. Promote unity and inclusion. Care for the poor. Protect the vulnerable. Guard freedom of thought and discussion. Respect other nations and people. Ensure the stewardship of creation. Cherish the human family. Provide moral leadership. As I mentioned, I was at our national convention in Santa Ana and at a workshop there, a workshop about how spiritually minded people sometimes struggle with how to speak up about such things as social justice because they don't want to abandon this universal principle of oneness and inclusion. That's what the workshop was about. And the workshop presenter, one of our Centers for Spiritual Living ministers, told a compelling story of her journey to taking a stand for something. See, she was contacted by the local city council, which was struggling with a divided debate about plastic bags, whether or not to ban them. And it had become quite argumentative and divisive. So they contacted her and asked her to make a statement. And the self-talk that she went through was something like, well, I don't know anything about plastics. Who am I to tell other people what to do? Shouldn't people be free to make their own decisions about whether or not they want to use something dangerous that impacts the earth? But she showed up at the city council anyway at the meeting, and when it was her time to make a statement, this is what she did. She stood up and kept her eyes closed and started to say a spiritual mind treatment, an affirmative prayer, as if she was speaking about universal truth to the best of her ability. Something like this: there is one universal life that lives through all of us. In us, it is the wisdom that is resident and guides us. In us, it knows what to do and how to do it and which choices to make. And within us, it transcends all differences and opinions and reveals the right action. Something like that. That was her statement. And when she was done, the city council moved strongly together and voted to stop the use of plastic bags. Now, that is the power of regulating your thought to universal principle. One council member approached her afterwards and said, when you were talking, I started to remember who I am and what I'm here to do. And that's what clarified my vote. But that is the power of synchronizing your thought to universal principle. Now, this same minister, probably as a result of her speaking her statement at the council, found herself on a mailing list from a group of faith leaders who were trying to get together and make a public statement of their solidarity, but they were struggling. They wanted to stand against a proposed ban on a certain group of people. But they couldn't sink in with the statement because of its language. So our Center for Spiritual Living minister, although new and little known and self-doubting, she took this statement in the email and analyzed it and measured it against universal principle of oneness and truth and offered some edits. Here's the original statement. We, the clergy and leaders of faith communities, recognize and acknowledge the anxiety and concern that has resulted from the fear and divisiveness of the recent elections. Our strength is in our diversity, and we join our voices to declare and affirm our support for all the residents of our city. We stand against hate. We stand against bigotry. We stand for equality. We stand for justice. We commit to listening to all members of our community regardless of their political philosophy, and they couldn't unite around it. There was something that was not sinking. Here are the edits she offered. We, the clergy and leaders of faith communities, recognize and acknowledge the anxiety and concern in the wake of the recent elections. Our strength is in our diversity, and we join our voices to declare and affirm our support for all the residents of our city. We stand for love. We stand for inclusivity. We stand for equality. We stand for justice. And then she inserted our own mission. We stand for a world that works for everyone. We commit to listening to all members of our community regardless of political philosophy. And don't you know that this small but significant shift away from division and combat toward oneness, truth, and love made it possible for the faith communities to come together and sign on. And that is the power of regulating thought to universal principle of love and truth. I don't know what political party you belong to, but my own political party sends me emails almost every day, sometimes multiple times in a day. And do you know that the language of these emails are filled up with conflict and threats and danger? One of my best friends belongs to a different political party. And his political party sends him emails almost every single day, sometimes many times a day. And the emails from his political party are filled up with conflict, threats, and danger, just with different opinions. Neither one of the parties seems to be dwelling on the universal life principle of truth and oneness. It's not always easy to read those emails and find in them truth, honesty, justice, purity, love, and things of good report. Oh, note to self. I can't make them responsible for my mind. I must regulate my thinking to the universal truth. That's my job. I must analyze the words in emails and newscasts and from political leaders and test what they say to see if it is of God, the universal principle, so that my perception is not coerced. Because whoever controls the information controls perception. But I control my mind. I cannot talk for anybody else, but I know I cannot let myself be persuaded to believe that the way to peace and freedom and autonomy is by letting children live in fear of being shot at school. Let's go back to the beginning of this message. Science of mind teaches that there is a spiritual power that runs in and through all creation, a power that works for us at the level of our belief and acceptance. It is a teaching that is based on a statement from the master teacher, Jesus of Nazareth, who on several different occasions told people something like this: "As thou hast believed, so be it done unto thee." That is why on Wednesday evenings we are offering these free 1-hour classes to encourage each person to come to clarity for themselves on what the universal principle of life is, so that they can put it to good use in their lives, to seek the common good, to be truthful in facts and motives, to promote unity and inclusion, to care for the poor, to protect the vulnerable, to guard freedom of thought and discussion, to respect other nations and peoples, to ensure the stewardship of creation, to cherish the human family, and to provide moral leadership. I invite you to breathe in with me and to exhale, letting your eyes close if you feel comfortable, for a moment of prayer. I know there is a power for good which is responding right now to me and bringing into my experience everything that is necessary for my peace. I know there is a power for good that enables me to help others and to bless the whole world. So I say quietly to myself, there is one life. That life is God. That life is perfect. That life is my life now. It is flowing through me, circulating in me, and I am one with its rhythm. My heart beats with the pulsation of the universe. My whole physical being is animated by divine spirit. And I say to myself, I am daily guided so that I shall know what to do in every circumstance, in every situation. Divine intelligence guides me in love, in joy, and in complete self-expression. Desiring that the law of good alone shall control me, I bless and prosper everything that I am doing. realizing that I am one with all people, I affirm that there is a silent power flowing through me and them, a power which blesses and prospers and makes happy and glad their pathway. And realizing that the world is made up of people just like myself, I bless the world and affirm that it shall come under divine government of good, under the divine providence of love, and under the divine leadership of the supreme intelligence. For thine is the kingdom and the power and the glory forever. Amen. I invite you to breathe in again with me and to sigh.